Hey everybody, one of the things that I've been trying to focus on in my portfolio is to geographically diversify. In other words, get more exposure to international stocks in my portfolio. I really didn't have much. I mean, I have a larger investment in Mercado Libre. That's one of my top investments. But really, other than that, I don't have a lot of non-US companies in my portfolio. So I'm going to talk about some excellent Vanguard low-cost ETFs that you can use to get it. I'll tell you which one I've invested in, and I'll kind of just let you know the differences between them and what you might want to take into account. Before we dive in, please take a minute and check out the link you see on your screen, fool.com/Frankel. Get the top 10 stocks to buy right now from my sponsor, The Motley Fool. It is the best way to support this work I'm doing on YouTube. Again, fool.com/Frankel, and stay tuned after this video for a special message from The Motley Fool. So let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. So let's start with the most basic of these. There's 6 on this list altogether. The first one I'm going to talk about, and Vanguard has more. These are just kind of the ones that I would say most apply to everybody. Like they have some more specific ones, like very regional specific. But number one, Vanguard Total International Stock ETF. The ticker symbol of this ETF is VXUS. It's the biggest one on the list. $445 billion of total assets it has invested. Very small, also the lowest expense ratio, 0.05%. So a very low cost ETF. All these Vanguard ETFs are low cost, but this one's even lower cost than most. And this is the short description of this is it's a broad index. Right now there are about 8,600 stocks in this fund. It's a weighted index, so the bigger holdings make up a higher percentage. But it's companies that are based outside the U.S. One kind of quick clarification: when you'll hear two different terms when you hear these funds: international stock and global stock. Global stock funds include the U.S., so you'll see some U.S. companies there. International stock funds generally specifically exclude the United States. So these are all companies based outside the United States. You can see the top holdings there are companies that you might be familiar with. Some of these are listed on U.S. exchanges: Taiwan Semiconductor, Tencent, and SAP. So again, this is the most broad or basic of these S&P or of these international stock funds. So let's move on to number 2, the Vanguard International High Dividend Yield ETF. Ticker symbol is VYMI. A somewhat smaller one, $8.5 billion of assets under management. Also, the highest expense ratio on the list, 0.17. I wouldn't call that high for an index fund, just in general. And general rule is the more specialized or unique an index fund is, the higher expense ratio you're going to pay. This is, I would argue, the most specialized ETF on this list. It specializes in stocks that are based outside the U.S. that have above average dividend yields. This is honestly the one that I've invested in so far in my portfolio to get some international exposure. Ticker symbol again, VYMI. And you can see a lot of these are household names. Roche, Toyota, Nestle. These are all companies that are based outside the U.S. that have above average dividends. It is an excellent dividend payer. It was over 4% last time I saw it. So I'm an income investor, so it's a naturally good fit for me. Number 3, I'm a real estate guy, so I like this one too. I haven't bought it yet. The Vanguard Global ex-US Real Estate ETF. So I mentioned you'll see global and international. This one specifies it's global but excludes the U.S. Ticker symbol is VNQI. 3.3 billion in assets, so it's a relatively small ETF by Vanguard standards anyway. Expense ratio is 0.12%, so pretty low. And it's real estate stocks, mainly real estate investment trusts that are based outside the U.S. It has just under 700 stocks altogether. And I didn't put the top holdings because chances are you haven't heard of them. If you're a U.S. investor, the real estate investment trusts based overseas are not household names, but can be a great choice for income and some diversification in your portfolio. Number 4 is another dividend ETF, but it's a little bit different. Instead of prioritizing high dividends, this is the Vanguard International Dividend Appreciation ETF. This prioritizes dividends that grow over time. Ticker symbol is VIGI. And it's worth noting a lot of these ticker symbols are the same as their U.S. funds, just with that I on the end. So the Vanguard regular dividend appreciation ETF is VIG. The international one is just VIGI. Same with that real estate one, VNQ, and then VNQI. So this one, 0.10% expense ratio, pretty low. So these are non-U.S. stocks with strong records of growing their dividends. You can see some overlap between these and the other funds I've talked about. SAP, Roche, and Novartis are the top holdings, but there are probably a lot of stocks in these that you are well aware of. Excuse me. So number 5 is the Vanguard FTSE Emerging Markets ETF. Ticker symbol is VWO, one of the more popular Vanguard International ETFs with $110 billion of assets under management. Also one of the cheapest with a 0.07% expense ratio. This focuses in stocks in developing nations. So the U.S. would be a developed market. Most of Europe is developed markets. So these are developing nations. And it has a particularly high concentration in China, India, and Taiwan. I don't have the number right in front of me, but I want to say those three combined for like 3/4 of the portfolio. It's a big number. Top holdings are Taiwan Semi, Tencent, and Alibaba Group. But again, there are a lot that you probably heard of. When you hear emerging markets, it doesn't mean kind of obscure companies that you've never heard of. It just means companies that are based in developing nations. So number 6, last but not least, this is the next one that's on my radar. It's the one that I'm thinking of buying, is the Vanguard All World ex-US Small Cap ETF. So I'm a big small cap investor. I think it's one of the biggest opportunities in the market right now. The Vanguard Russell 2000 ETF is a domestic one that I've been buying heavily. Ticker symbol on that is VTWO. And this is the international version of that. Ticker symbol is VSS. So this is a big portfolio of smaller companies with a relatively small median market cap, $1.9 billion median market cap. For context, the average Russell 2000 company is about $3.5 billion. So small companies, well, very diverse. There's thousands of stocks in this index, and a very small 0.08% expense ratio. So those are the 6 international Vanguard ETFs that are really on my radar right now. And one of those could be a really good fit for most investors. So let me stop my share. Hopefully you found that informative. Ask me any questions about these. I'll do my best to respond to any of them individually. And be sure to stay tuned right now for a message from The Motley Fool. I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. The Motley Fool is a company that provides investing insight and stock recommendations for investors of all skill sets and risk levels. You all know how much I love researching new stocks and trying to find the next best investments. So I'm proud to partner with The Motley Fool to bring you 10 stock picks from their popular product, Stock Advisor. Stock Advisor has beaten the market more than 5 times. Go to fool.com/Frankel to get your 10 stock picks now. The Motley Fool Stock Advisor returns are 914% as of January 7th, 2025, and are measured against the S&P 500 returns of 174% as of January 7th, 2025.